Hi. In this courageous conversation, I'll be speaking with Anastasia Salichou, who is an intuitive life and health coach, combining the principles of functional medicine, coaching, and powerful healing modalities to help her clients create permanent, desirable changes on the mind, body, and soul level. We'll be talking about courage to own who we really are, to show up as our authentic selves and say yes to what we want and no to what we don't want, especially when that is kind of clashing with our environment's expectations. So I really hope you get inspired by this episode, and let's dive right in. Okay, here we are. Hey, Anastasia. After a few initial technical difficulties, here we are. How are you today?
I'm good, Moita. Nice to be here with you and having this chat.
Yeah, I love having you here. And I really liked our pre-chat, and I think it's such an interesting angle on courage, and I'm really excited to dive right in. So I always start this conversation just asking my guests in general, what is courage for you? Kind of, do you have your own definition of courage?
What is courage for me? For me personally, is means to be able to show up as myself, as my authentic self, no matter what the circumstances, no matter who is around me. And I really had to work on it to be able to do it, and still have a lot of work ahead of me. But it's all about authentic expression of self and being grounded on who I really am. I hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And I'm hearing that the courage to be who you really are and express yourself authentically, no matter the circumstance, no matter, I guess, what anyone says, is because there is some fear, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, it would be easy for me to show up as who I am in all my life, right? There definitely was fear, and I have seen that in my clients too. There definitely was fear about how I'm going to be accepted and how I'm going to be integrated into the society, into the school, into the family, into the friend setting. So it's always about being able to be part of a group of people, I guess, for me, and how other people are going to perceive me when I am being myself.
I hear you. Yeah. So that's key, isn't it? How others are going to perceive you. It's like, it's about fitting in. Fitting in. Does that resonate? That's
it's
what I'm...
about fitting in. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how... Go ahead.
Excuse me. And our innate need for the human beings to fit in, and how we are structured as a society to accept, mostly accept the people that fit into specific conformities. Either they are like, different societies have different conformities for sure, and different extensions and different circles of conformities, but generally most of us, I guess, when we think about it, we are called to be some kind of specific type of person, right? A coach is like this, a student is like this, a woman is like this. So how we are showing up and how we want to integrate that kind of role of a woman, of a coach, of a spiritual teacher, or whatever we want to integrate in our lives is different for each person, and we should be able to, authentically present that depending on what we want and how we are.
Yeah. So I'm hearing it's about being authentic, right? So I imagine, and you mentioned a few different areas, right, in life. A coach is this, a woman is that, and of course it's also dependent on where you grow up, right, or on your particular groups that you, I guess, want to belong to, etc. And where has this been, kind of this work? Where in your life have you found this work on kind of working on this courage to be authentically you most important? Is there a particular area of your life?
Mostly in my work and in my business, where I had to really get out of the spiritual closet, as we say, and get out of the, conformity of being shown in a specific way. I studied electrical engineering, which is nothing like what I do right now. And I had to go through a process where I had to accept myself and showing up as myself step by step of the way to be able to be authentically me and say, you know, I'm a psychic. I work with people, and as a coach, I'm not an electrical engineer anymore. And it's not that I am, you know, I'm taking all the good stuff that I took from that, but that wasn't me. And I had to change myself in order to fit in that. And so it's mostly my work that I had to accept who I am, because I felt like I was being called to open up more and more aspects of myself in order to be better at what I do and be able to deliver at all the circumstances that were happening. Yeah, I think it was mostly that. Yeah.
And how was that process for you? What was how did you navigate that, I guess, as you know, because you said you were an electrical engineer and you took all the good stuff from it, which I'm sure there's, you know, the skills that I don't think we're supposed to be one thing all our lives, right? Like we can try different things, and especially now, I don't know if you're familiar with that term, multi-passionate, you know. I don't know if that was your case. It might not be, because very often we also, when we try to fit in or conform whoever, you know, to our parents or our groups, we can go completely down a path that we wouldn't otherwise. But sometimes it's something that we actually did enjoy for a while, but then we still want to change. But how was it for you? How did you figure out that you needed to change, and then how did you practice courage?
Yeah, well, that what you said was very wise, Moitza, because in my life, I have felt both sides of it, both of the side that I had to get out of electrical engineering because it didn't feel talking to my soul. Yeah, I didn't hate it in any way, but it wasn't, I couldn't imagine myself being in that industry for a long time, for the next years. And then I didn't jump into getting out of my spiritual closet right away. I had to go through a process where I decided coaching is my calling. Helping other people and supporting other people is my calling. So I studied health coaching, which was way out of my comfort zone back then. But now thinking back into it, it's so grounded and so, you know, leveled for most people. It's not totally out there, right? Like what I'm doing now. And I had to work on it step by step. It was like I was following breadcrumbs, and on the way, I had to integrate the fears, integrate lack of self-confidence, integrate fear of not fitting in anymore in my social groups. So it was a process it has been a process, because it's still a process of at least 5 years now to be able to do it and be able to, you know, express myself more authentically now.
Yeah. And it's so important, isn't it? Because I'm wondering how, I guess I have so many questions right now as I was listening to you, but let me just focus and ask the next one. I guess I heard you say that you decided you're going to be a health coach, and I don't know, that really stood out to me. That's interesting, isn't it? You decided to be a health coach and you went for it. So that sounds like that was, I mean, you tell me, was that the moment that was that a courageous moment for you, or what would you say was that courageous moment for you when you made that or started on that transition?
I think during that transition, the most courageous moment for me was to resign from my engineering job and sign up for a coaching training, which means I went from an income of X amount per month to 0 to be able to pursue what I wanted. So that was pretty scary. Fortunately, I had support within my environment, especially my partner, to be able to do that. But that, going back into thinking about it, I'm like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by myself still.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was a calling, and it felt like there was no other way for me to be healthy and happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was courageous, but at the same time, it was kind of one way if I wanted to do something with my life and be happy.
Yeah, and I hear that from a lot of people when I talk about courage, and I recognize that in myself. When something is so important that it's just bigger than the fear, that's when the courage kick in and we conquer that fear, because that thing that we're moving towards is just so important. There's
Yeah,
no way we're
I
not
got
good.
I got goosebumps. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
Me
I agree with
too.
you.
Me
Yeah,
too. It's amazing, isn't it? And I think it's so cool to tap into those things that are important to us, because they actually can really fuel our courage, I think. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's as you to your point. It's not about being reckless or dangerous or something like that. It's about focusing on what we want, and then courage will come and strength will come because it has to.
Mm.
It will. Because, as you said, what we're trying to create is much bigger than the fear.
Mm-hmm. And I guess in terms of tips or advice, and if someone was, really in fear, right? Or when thinking back to your time when you perhaps felt in fear, or kind of when you weren't, I don't know, if you weren't taking the action yet, what helps you in those moments that are scary? What helps you to be courageous? And yeah, that might be helpful for
What
people
helps
listening.
me, yeah, I guess it depends on the time and what I'm trying to create and do. It usually, in order to make it easier for me, I do some healing on myself and some integration of the fear, looking at what is the fear and what is the root cause and what does it mean to me? Why am I afraid? Because when we break it down, sometimes the fears we're feeling do not really make sense. They are not really that big. They are not really that important. So it helps me to see what I'm afraid of and see what I want to create and decide between the two. And sometimes I stay into fear for some time. It's normal. It's okay. We don't need to fear the fear, in other words. It's a feeling that is here to help us grow, in my opinion. So one of them is that. The other is to be able to talk with people and express my feelings, express my fear. When we are able to verbalize what we're going through, it's easier. Sometimes we don't even need the feedback from the other person to be able to understand what's going on. And asking for support is really important, which I many times forget to do. But every time and again, whenever I do it and ask for support, I realize how important it is.
Yeah. Oh, I love those. I love all of those three, Anastasia. Such great tips. First, kind of break your fear down, really look at it, right? Really look what it is, and it can kind of just crumble in front of you, right? Perhaps. And perhaps not rushing through it, right? And sometimes it's okay to take a little bit of time and then before we go, right? And the verbalizing, I love that as well. That's why I think coaching is so powerful, because you actually, when you verbalize, things take on a different, I don't know, a different shape, energy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. And I love how you said as well that fear for you is there to help you grow. What an awesome reframe on the fear. It's not something to avoid, to try to fear, right? It's pointing you in the right direction, right? In the direction of growth. Amazing.
Yeah.
And the support. Yeah, I'll say I think it's a hugely courageous act when we're not used to asking, because it can feel quite vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much resonate with that, because I as I was growing up, I was praised for doing it all myself, and
Mm-hmm.
I was quite proud of being able to do it all myself. And then getting into, adulthood, where you're not supposed to do everything yourself, and trying to, it can be quite tricky. So I love that you brought that up. Yeah, it definitely helps to be more courageous in with other people, right?
Yeah, we can be like, why not asking for the support? And people love to help. People love creating space for other people to just be themselves. And our friends do, and our coaches do, and our healers do that too. And if since we can have the support, why not make it easy for ourselves, right? Doesn't mean that everything is going to dissipate and everything is going to be easy, because then we also need to take action, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that might be the hardest thing
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Sometimes the healing is the hardest thing. It depends on what we're working on. But generally, like, I think that all of those steps are helpful and have helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Great thing you brought up there. Really interesting that you said sometimes the action, right, can be the hardest thing. And I tend to always focus on the action, and that's taking the action is the courageous thing. But really intriguing, you said sometimes healing is the courageous thing, depending on what you're working on. And I just recently, actually just yesterday, had a conversation on that. So tell me how you see that, and then I'll share my perspective afterwards.
Yeah, when we go deep within ourselves to look at our aspects and what's coming up as our fears, it can be really difficult to face some of them sometimes, because all the emotions come up, things that we didn't know we had or thought or believed might come up, and it kind of can shatter our ego and our perspective and image of ourselves. So, like, I do feel fear whenever I decide to do deep healing on myself, because I don't know where I'm going to go and what I'm going to see, and what kind of abuse I have been through past lifetimes, or what kind of beliefs I've taken on. Of course, it's liberating when we do, but when we see them, it can be daunting and difficult, and feeling like our ego is keeping us from doing it. So I do think that healing on its own is very courageous, and people that do it, I salute them every day, really.
Yeah, I agree, actually, and it's yeah, that's what occurred to me, and that you reminded me of. It's the courage to even look at the potential issues, right? Because sometimes we just keep doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and we get nowhere, because there might be something kind of stuck, or something that we refuse to look at within ourselves or in our lives, in our systems that we're in, or whatever. And yeah, I love that you brought attention to that, so anyone listening can reflect on that. Where can we be courageous in kind of in terms of introspection, in terms of self healing, and kind of removing those internal obstacles or whatever. And when you were speaking, I was like, I got this quite a nasty visual of the fear being of like that proverbial can of worms. Oh no, if I go down that path, oh my God, what's going to come out? And will I be
it
able
feels
to
like that? Yeah.
Will I be able to deal with whatever comes up? And that, I think that's the courage, because fear is, will I be able to handle it, whatever I uncover, right? So it's a real, I don't know, more and more I'm realizing that courage is really about self-trust, like having faith in ourselves that we will be able to handle whatever comes. Yeah, I love it.
And also having faith maybe in a higher perspective of ourselves to be able to help us and hold our hands, and have the trust that when we want to go and dive deep within ourselves, there will always be a way to integrate more and heal more, and it's always worth it, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not scaring people that haven't been through that feeling experience.
Yeah, and I love that. And actually what you mentioned, that there is a higher perspective of us, or I sometimes call it, if that's the same thing that you're talking about, something greater than us. I find that I find it much easier to tap into courage and be courageous when I know I can lean on that something that's greater than me. You know, it's like feeling like, okay, there's more to this than meets the eye. It's like there is something supporting us essentially on this path of growth that we are going through life.
Yeah, it's good to remember and remind ourselves that we are not alone in any of the steps of the way. Even if we don't have physically someone holding our hand, we have something greater than us. And it's not, well, I will rephrase that. It's not greater, but it's a different aspect and different perspective that maybe we cannot see.
Yes, and when I say greater, I meant bigger or beyond the us, beyond the psychological me and the physical me. That's
I rephrase the greater just so that we don't feel like we are small and there's something bigger than us. But I totally agree with you.
I love, very important point, because we play small way too much in our lives already. We don't need to add that with being kind of small in relation to something that's actually very supportive, and it's actually kind of a part of it. It will be a part of it, or it's us, but just in a different on a different level, if you will. Exactly. So when you think, Anastasia, about an area in your life, I mean, you already shared, right? Or maybe before that, let's just kind of drill a little bit into how has, being courageous, why is it even important? Like what have you noticed that being courageous kind of, how does it benefit your life, if you will? Because I'm thinking, I'm talking about courage and living courageously, and maybe people would be just like, does it even matter? I think it matters. What's your perspective on that?
My intention for myself is to grow, to always grow and to always learn something new and do something new and different in order for this exponential growth to happen. So being courageous is an integral part of it, because that means getting out of my comfort zone, doing things that I haven't done before, doing things that just trusting the process and going into, like, most of the times I don't really know what the work with my clients is going to bring. So being able to be courageous into stepping into that trust that everything is going to work out, but also doing the work itself. For some people, might be to be courageous might be to just get up from bed and put their clothes on. It depends on each person, in my opinion, what is courageous and what is not. And definitely, I feel like my sphere of courage is growing the more I step out of the comfort zone and the sphere's limits.
Totally.
It's about feeling the growth and seeing the growth within me.
It's a great point that you brought up, and it's true. It's like we're such purposeful beings, people. I think we do things when we see that it's to some purpose or to some end, or that there are some results. There's always purpose to our actions, right? Whatever it is, even if it seems sometimes irrational or whatever. But and I just want to say that we need to be able to notice, right? We need to actually look at sometimes, why do I want to do this, right? Because sometimes the fear can be just overwhelming, or it seems like it's not worth it. Wait a second, why am I doing this? What has being courageous already brought me in my life, right? Where has it already helped me? And then
and be able to feed ourselves in that process and be able to be more courageous the next time.
Exactly. Rather than just seeing, I see it a lot in my clients, and I used to when my coach asked me, so how do you celebrate? I'm like, oh, celebrate? What do you mean? You mean birthdays or holidays? Like, but it's literally actually celebrating the steps that we have already taken, the results that we have had, celebrate ourselves for being courageous. I think it's huge. And basically training ourselves to see those things that being courageous is giving us or bringing, how is it enriching our lives? I think it's important to stop and notice the benefits so that we have more, I guess, strength or fuel or motivation to keep being courageous in the future.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And my cat wants to be courageous right now. He wants
Oh,
to jump on my lap.
Oh my God, I love cats. My cat is somewhere outside. I wish he was here.
He wants some cuddles.
Oh, nice. Yeah, cats somehow really love being on camera. I worked with a coach that did workshops, and his cat always popped his head up during the trainings. It was hilarious.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, really funny. Cool. So I guess the next thing I wanted to ask you, Anastasia, and I know you mentioned it already in terms of leaving your previous career and completely kind of changing that, right? Shifting into a different field and coming out of that spiritual closet. But I guess, it could be the same time or another time in your life, and you look back at your life and you just think to yourself, wow, that was a really courageous thing. I was really courageous then. What comes to mind?
My relationship with my partner. Because we started off a relationship that is the most long distance you can ever imagine. Me in Greece, he was in the US. So we had to find ways to be able to meet with each other. It was my first time traveling alone and going into the US to go meet him, going into a new, different culture, which was exciting, but at the same time, kind of scary. Not knowing where this is going to go and where this will take me in my life.
So you've met when you were in distance. You weren't together before and then moved apart.
We met when he was over here for vacation. And then it happened that we met again and again and again, and we're together since then for 6 years now. But the first 3-4 years of our relationship, I had to change all my life to be able to travel a lot to the US and be able to spend share time with him. And so that was a big change, going into a different place, having to meet new people, make new friends. It took me some time, but I made it.
Yeah, amazing. And what would you say was your fuel then? What was the fuel for that brave kind of uprooting the life you had?
Well, definitely my attraction to my partner. That was a big fuel. And I always wanted to travel anyway, so that was kind of a vision coming true, a dream coming true. It gave me a lot of opportunities for traveling through this experience. And wanting to get to know him more, wanting to spend time with him and grow with him was the fuel, I guess. And that was also scary a lot of times, and had to be courageous for me to take action and be able to that was one of the reasons I left my job. So they were all kind of happened at the same time. I left my job. I started traveling to the US a lot. I started my coaching training. So they were all kind of happening simultaneously. A lot of changes in my life.
Wow. Sounds intense.
It was intense. Yeah, intense.
Nice. But sometimes it's best to just do it all together, isn't it? Like when you're in that energy and it just feels like you're riding this big wave. That's how it feels for me sometimes.
Yeah. I guess like ripping the band-aid off and
Yeah.
Doing it not slowly, but jumping
Yeah.
into it. It
Yeah.
was a process, definitely. It was a process.
Yeah. I love that. And makes me think about, that, yeah, when we really want something, isn't it? Then we'll do it. Like, then we'll find it within us to overcome any obstacle, right? And that's, yeah, I think having that kind of self trust, or just trusting that passion. And also, you said you wanted to grow with him, right? And with your changing your going to your business. And I'm hearing like curiosity. And when I think of myself,
Mm-hmm.
curiosity is often a huge driving force for courage. I just have to go there. It's like, oh, but it's scary, but I'm too curious not to go. And this, like, I feel like curiosity can almost like pull you forward. Is not, you don't need to push as much if you let yourself be pulled,
Yeah.
almost.
And I think it's curiosity when we look at what we are curious about, because we're not curious about everything, right? There's some things and some you're
I'm kidding, but pretty close.
and maybe that's bringing up your multi-passionate aspect.
Yeah.
And understanding that for you, but like at the same time, like taking some understanding into what we are curious about and what drives us and what really we want to follow, it is also understanding about ourselves.
Yeah.
Like when back into the engineering, I wasn't really curious about learning about new technologies. I wasn't curious about learning more about how I can be a better electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, for me, that was a big understanding that it was a kind of dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to change it.
Mm. Great point, because that was actually one last thing that I was curious. And I wanted to ask you, what was that point, of decision? Because you said there were so many things happening at once, and you just gave me at least part of the answer now, that curiosity was not there. You knew you had to leave. Was there anything else?
Yeah, one aspect was that there was no curiosity. So I would see my colleagues, and even back in the university when I was studying, I would see the people really wanting to know and learn and grow within that field. And I was like, okay, I'll just pass my exam and attend the lectures. Okay. So I was never, excited, but I was looking for the excitement in my life. And I forgot the second part. So part one is the curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Of what
It will help me. Tell me the question again.
Of what was that point that you knew you wanted to, you said
Yes.
you wanted to move out.
The other point was I kept asking myself the question, do I want to be here in 5 years? And the answer was always no. I didn't know what exactly my life would look like in 5 years from when I asked this question, but when I was trying to visualize myself in an office doing the same kind of work or similar, it was always no, there's no way I'm doing that. So for me, it was a big indicator that I had to do something else.
Yeah, and I want to bring that back to when we said it's courageous to look at your life, to dive deep into yourself, but also I think to look at your life and ask yourself the tough question: am I happy where I am? Do I want to be here in 5? Do I see myself here in 5 years? And this resonates so much, Anastasia, because I was in that situation in my kind of corporate time as well. I remember there was like this possibility, for a promotion, and everybody was expecting me to go for it, and it just did not align at all with what I wanted to do. It would be a huge change in lifestyle. I would have to travel, and I love traveling, but it's very different when you travel for work. I would have to be away from, my partner who I loved. We just got a cat. It just so didn't align. Like there was so many no. And the expected thing, kind of the fitting in bit, right, that we started with, would be, oh yeah, just go for that, just
Of course you're going to go.
climb that ladder, because
Yeah.
that's the opportunity. You're not grabbing the opportunity. And yeah, and I think it takes guts to admit that I don't want to be here. I'm going to do what really makes my heart sing. And well, I applaud you for that.
So as you're saying, it takes, if we want to sum it up, it takes courage to say yes to what we want and no to what we don't want in our life. And sometimes what we are leaving behind and we don't want is something big for someone else that will be like, you're going to leave your career? No way. Mm-hmm. How could you? How are you going to do it? Like it's having to say no to multiple levels of not wanting to do something, not wanting to pursue something that doesn't excite us, and it's not us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's layers there. When we say no to something, it's also, it doesn't mean anything about anyone else that is living that way. That's their choice. I think it's important to I think there might be, I don't know, I'm going into, again, all sorts of directions in my head right now, but what I wanted to say was that it's important to stay, when you said to say yes to what we want, I think it's essentially saying yes to ourselves, to who we want to grow into, to who we want to move to, you know, the future me, or the future you that you want to actually grow into, and you know, rather than the future you that kind of is the expected you perhaps, but not the real you, if that resonates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you're right, for someone, what you were leaving behind, that's huge. They would love to have exactly that. And that's why this is a perfect world. There's so many different people. I mean, perfect in some ways, definitely not perfect in other ways, but in that way of there's so many different interests, and you know, it's kind of, there is the right path.
And some people do well in some kind of specific profession, let's say, and some others won't. Like, I wouldn't grow as an engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't interested in it, so I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and it's someone else's dream, right?
It's someone else's dream, and they should go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the bottom line. Yeah, the bottom line is really to be true to ourselves, and to say yes to ourselves, to say yes to what we want. I love it. I love this, Anastasia. Is there anything else you would like to add at the end? Anything else you want to leave? Any final thoughts?
I would say that I invite everyone to be as courageous as they can, because it's also not about pushing ourselves to do things that are way, way out of our comfort zone. And sometimes we tend to think that this is courage. Courage is also about respecting ourselves and doing it through following our hearts, not again what other people think that we should be doing as courage, or conforming in a different kind of fitting in, right?
I love it. Oh my God, what a great note. Yeah. What a wonderful note to end on, to be courageous in our own way, what's right for us. I love it. It's definitely about self-respect, about caring for ourselves. Courage is caring, not self-punishment in any way.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
courage is caring. Yeah.
Anastasia, thank you for being here with me. I really loved our talk. I'm gonna put the where people can find out more about you in the description of the video, and goodbye for now.
Yeah, really lovely to be here. Thank you, Maita.
Thank you.